it's vitally important that students be represented in their teachers.
Historically, indigenous peoples always are taught by their elders.
It's like a child not having their mother as one of their original teachers or their fathers as their original teachers.
Black teachers generally believe that our students are gifted as compared to their white counterparts.
There's a Eurocentric perspective, and a lot of times what ends up happening is when Black teachers are not teaching Black kids, the Afrocentric perspective never comes into play. It's essential that when a child comes to school, that their teacher is able to teach them about their culture, not just the academics.
I can teach them to be, timely and thoughtful and reflective and trustworthy, but I can't show them what it's like to be a Black professional.
They need a Black teacher in a classroom to understand the complexities of being Black in America.
With race comes culture, comes ways of being, ways of knowing. Through your culture, you are smart. Through your culture, you are intellectual. Through your culture, you can have persuasive writing. You can be intellectual.
If you're not a Black person that has already navigated this world, how can you teach that?
There are fewer people going into the teaching profession nationally, but also clearly here in Maryland.
Teacher pipelines to urban schools have been outsourced to national organizations that don't necessarily recruit and retain teachers of color.
I applied for a TFA and I didn't make it past the second phone interview. And I was told it was because of my GPA. So then when I started teaching, I started talking to people that were TFA, predominantly white, female, or male teachers. And I was like, well, what was your GPA when you got accepted? Oh, I had a 2.7. Why is it that people that went to predominantly large white institutions already knew about TFA, were easily accepted, versus people like me who went to a small HBCU?
Alternative certification was introduced as a way to attract people with higher academic preparation to Baltimore City.
Over the last few years, we're generally hiring about half from alternative certification programs. We know that we need to leverage all sources of potentially great teachers for our students.
No one thought about the real value that homegrown teachers and teachers that represent the communities where their students come from, no one really was talking about those values.
What's been happening more lately is because of the focus on hiring in batches through alternative certification programs, people who are coming fully certified from a local university may not be able to get an early contract.
There have been times where I've had principals say to me, we love this candidate, but we can't hire him because we have to take a candidate from another alternative certification program.
One of the challenges is often the complexity of budgeting in urban centers. And with the state funding formula, as states push their budgets out later and later, it becomes harder and harder for school districts to act proactively and make promises to teachers that they might not be able to fulfill.
And what will almost invariably happen in that case is the teachers who are fully certified may get an offer sooner from one of the counties, and then we lose them.
And unfortunately, what that is looking like right now is a lot of young white females teaching, and teaching mostly Black kids.
So I don't think that it's fair at all for Teach for America to come in and get the same job that I can when I worked for 4 years to do the same job, and they didn't have to do the course load that I did.
Another barrier that really is impacting schools now, especially HBCUs, based on my experience, is just the role that licensure examinations are playing.
There were legislative changes that changed certification and testing requirements.
One piece of certification is Praxis.
Praxis for elementary education is a series of 5 tests. The first 3 tests are Praxis core, so that's math, reading, and writing.
Praxis tests, which are the kind of gateway tests, are much easier for some people, depending on the kind of education that they've had, and they are biased against people who are not necessarily great test takers, but they know how to deal with children, or they know the subject area.
A lot of black teachers couldn't pass the test. A lot of black teachers could not satisfy the requirements. So they were more or less pushed out.
This one measure is canceling out 4 to 5 years of undergraduate, passing other exams or whatever.
I have yet to understand the connection between passing praxis and your ability to function as a highly effective teacher.
Sometimes it's no protections for the teachers. I just was speaking with a teacher earlier today who had a student come up in their face and she was scared. And that's pretty much my biggest reason for probably wanting to leave right now is safety and also peace of mind. Since I work with Baltimore City Schools, I've started seeing a therapist. I'm not the only teacher that sees therapists.
Administration disproportionately places African American teachers in the classes with the lowest achieving students.
Sometimes I get relied on as a disciplinarian. I wonder if they're asking me to do it because I don't have as much of a discomfort around yelling at somebody's child who reminds me of my little brother.
And that's not to say that some of the teachers can't handle it, but just because you're black doesn't mean that you should be the one dealing or addressing those situations.
With No Child Left Behind, I think that there was a national effort to say all kids should have certain opportunities, and that in order to ensure that there needs to be a level of accountability for teachers being effective for all kids. But what I think that led to was putting in place new standards as if having low standards was the reason that kids weren't achieving, not the inequities and the class and race issues that kids face, that it was just, we had low expectations of kids, and that if we just higher our expectations and improve teacher quality, that will solve everything.
If a superintendent like Dr. Alonso comes in and wants to really change the school system, one of the ways you can do that is try to get rid of the long-standing people. And it's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, in that yes, those people may not be as open to the reforms that you want to put in place, but at the same time, they may carry the kind of knowledge that you'll never get back if you lose them.
So you can have a person who comes in with an education degree, maybe they spent a couple of years in the classroom, and the next thing you know, they're the principal of the school.
Yes.
And they're evaluating her.
Yes.
That was the final slap in the face to say, okay, we don't value what you've experienced over the years. We don't value the work that you've put in. We just want to move on.
A narrative going on across the country that the problem is the teachers. So we need to figure out a way to get rid of the ones that aren't up to snuff.
And while I think the idea of looking for efficiencies is important, looking for best strategies for effectiveness is important, and certainly at least a critical glance at outcomes matters, but people aren't products.
Veteran teachers and veteran principals retired at high rates under the former superintendent, Andres Alonso, who was one of those big, bold reformers. Principals were fired after 2 years if their data didn't move. It created really tough climates in schools, and especially the veteran, they had been doing this for a long time, and the measure of success was changing in a way that people didn't feel was reasonable.
I think Baltimore City, needs to look at their recruitment efforts when it comes to teachers, They need to look at their practices as far as why they're relying so much on alternative certification programs. And I also think that they need to make structures and relationships with historically black colleges and universities in order to recruit people from those programs. But I also think that they just need to rethink the way that they support teachers. So right now there's a lot of test and punish. People don't do well out of fear. They do well when they're supported and given the tools they need to be successful.
The culture of fear cannot continue because what it does is it stifles growth. It prevents people from admitting weakness or failure. And we all know that if you truly want a growth mindset, you have to be open to not being perfect every day.
I would like for race to be at the core of education.
I like to go and see what it was like to be truly separate. Have our own school, our own curriculum, our own control of the schools. Not unequal separatism, not like it was 50 years ago. Not Jim Crow, not that, but have separate where every face is your family.
Because we know that young people need role models who mirror them, who look like them, who society sees as similar to them. And we need teachers that are windows, that provide a glimpse outside of their own identities.
I'd like to see more of an effort given to building that diverse community of teachers in schools.
I would also like to see the certification thing totally thrown out the window. I think it's the worst thing that ever happened to the Baltimore City public school system.
You don't have to get rid of them, you just have to modify them to where you will have an influx of black teachers.
I would like to see a pipeline created for more black teachers and also for black, for students, like high school students that want to be teachers.
Colleges and universities in urban areas developing programs that will specifically target a diverse population of teachers, whether it's African American or who, and begin to groom them.
And then market to black teachers saying, you know what, our kids need you. They need to see the reflection of their future.
After being hired, there need to be deliberate structures in place as well to help support teachers.
We need to think about our teachers' social emotional needs, and we need to think about ensuring that we are building and maintaining really positive school climates.
With some effective mentorship that's built within, the first 2-3 years of training, you should have a mentor.
For far too long, communities of color, we have yielded to the system to kind of tell us whether we're doing good or not and to define achievement for us. And I really think in order for true educational reform to happen, the communities, we need to rise up and we need to dictate to the system what is it that we want to gain from it.
To be a black educator means to recognize the challenge, know that it's a beautiful challenge, and to be a black educator is a beautiful struggle for justice, for love, and empowerment.